Your mind is limitless. The possibilities are endless. Awaken Your Mind Magic shows you how you can dream limitlessly and live your life on a new level. Susan Kathleen speaks with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives using the power of their mind. Abundance, prosperity, and success. There are no limits to what you can dream. Join Susan Kathleen on a journey into your dreams, making a difference and living life on your own terms. This is Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My guest speaker today is LaChelle Adkins, who lives in Georgia, USA. She is known as America's Supermom. And from what I've read up about her, she certainly has right to claim this title. She is co-founder of Designers of Dream Living, a sales consultant at Mary Kay, and a former inside sales representative of Sunrise Greetings, and is highly qualified in advertising, business coaching, marketing, motivational leadership, and personal coaching. LaChelle is passionate about sharing the importance of mental wellness and says that many women ignore the signs of depression or try to push through instead of feeling empowered to make changes that can lead to a life of fulfillment. Welcome, LaChelle. I'm really pleased that you're able to be here with me and the listeners on Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Thank you so much for having me, Susan. I am really just honored to be here. I am obsessed with sharing the message of mental wellness, so I am happy to have another platform to do so. So thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Well, thank you so much for being here. LaChelle, I'm fascinated at your story and how you lent into being an advocate to helping and speaking out about the importance of mental wellness. This is what Awaken Your Mind Magic is all about, and how people like you who've been through life's challenges have turned them around to not only help and uplift yourself, but so many others as well. Please tell us about your awakening, your incredible story.
Thank you so much. I really am honored again to be here. My platform is, like you said, mental wellness, and my story begins where it's a long one, so I'll start at the beginning, where I really struggled with mental wellness of my own. I suffered for 13 years from depression, and I wasn't the depressed where I was just laying in the bed every day, not doing anything. As you said, I have the title of America's Supermom. So my husband and I have 15 kids. So during that time with that depression, it was just that adjustment of being a stay-home mom, not knowing what's expected of me as a stay-home mom. My husband and I met in college. So we both were on the career path of, he gets his career, I get mine, and all of my colleagues, friends, and people that were in my circle were all career oriented. So for me to stay home, I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't have an example. And so I went down the path of doing a lot of people pleasing, seeking validation from other people. And for that, I think it stemmed from my upbringing. I was an only child. So to go from being an only child to having a house full of people was a transition in itself. But my upbringing was centered around education. So my mom was one of 12. She had 11 brothers and sisters, and education was her outlet. It was something that helped her leave humble beginnings, and she really instilled that in me. So I really sought a lot of awards, accolades with that type of mindset. So I was in gifted classes. I was on honor roll and things like that. So my work ethic was built in. So I just felt like if I worked hard enough, having a large family, of course it would be successful. I've seen it happen academically. But it was on that journey that I found that, hey, you know what? You can't control people. You know, children don't fit in a box. You can't have one parenting style with all, 15. So all these things just left me in a place of trying to grapple some kind of stability and a mindset that was going to work for everybody.
What happened, LaChelle, when you got to the stage that you couldn't carry on, you couldn't cope?
Good question. Each of my hospitalizations, I was hospitalized during this period of 13 years 3 times. And my husband sought intervention for me. So I look back on that experience and I realized that I didn't even see the signs. I was so busy being robotic and task oriented that I didn't recognize what was happening in my own space. Everybody on the outside didn't even think anything was wrong. I was still, showing up for class field trips, parties with my kids at school, PTO. My husband's also a pastor. So, showing up at church and doing all these different things where people didn't really see. It was where I was used to wearing different masks. It's really what I would say. So the mask I would wear outside of the home. And then when I would get home, it would be, reality was set in. And it was just this cycle that, like I said, for 13 years, it had just become a part of my reality.
It makes me think of that song, The Tears of a Clown, where no one's around, and that you have this mask or different hats for different times. And they're so good at doing this, aren't they? They cover it up.
So true. And we do that a lot. And this has really gotten to be the norm for a lot of women. So what I have found just with me speaking out about it is that so many people have the same thoughts. They have the same mindset of what I experienced during that time that kind of drove me deeper and deeper into that depression, feeling like, you can't ask for help. If you are a mom, you're supposed to have all the answers. If you ask for help, it's a sign of weakness, that you don't know what you're doing. And I mean, the things that we tell ourselves really is the issue. And we go into a lot of isolation away from other people. And then that idea or mindset continues to make its way in different areas of your life.
It certainly does. What I'd love to know, and I'm sure this is a question that everybody asks you, 15 children? Oh, my word, you're my heroine.
Yeah.
Mom. Tell us about your 15 children.
Yes. Well, the blessing now is that we have 10 of those 15 that live at home. 8 of them are doing remote learning. So, it's just gotten to be like normal for me. That's one of the things that I have adjusted to having them around. As an only child, I've always longed for siblings. And, it was on my Christmas list every year to have a brother or sister. So that aspect is good. And I always describe my life now as during the depression and post-depression. So during the time of my depression, I was very focused on the bigger picture, how we look like as a family, where if you're doing the right thing, is it making the family name look good? Whereas now I'm very focused on my kids having an understanding of who they are as individuals and being able to express themselves. I feel part of unconditional love is, hey, if you don't do the dishes and that's your chore, I'm going to still love you. I don't have to beat you up about you choosing not to cooperate or be part of the team for whatever reason. And I think a lot of times we kind of go through that in real life where it's like somebody's not showing up. But instead of figuring out, well, why are they not showing up? Do they have all the tools to show up? Do they need help? Is something going on that they're not talking about? We have been conditioned so much at least here in America, where I can speak, is that, you just always have to be busy doing something. This is how life has meaning, to always go, 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 do, be, be, and you don't really have that time to reflect. So in my case, even being a caretaker for the number of kids, I didn't have time to really reflect. During that time, if someone even asked me something as simple as, what's your favorite color? I'd feel like that's an SAT question, for a standardized test, because I just didn't have that time. That was not on my program. Anything about me, what I had going on, it was all about, okay, are these kids together? Are we checking off the boxes on all the other things that seem to be important?
Now your children are growing older and have developed their own characters. Do you feel that your Christmas list that you asked when you were a little sibling all by yourself, you have these children, however, they are also like brothers and sisters, because you're pretty young.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll be 50 in December. So it's a blessing. Yeah. So, I'm learning to embrace a young 50. I remember back in the day, I thought, wow, 50 is so old. But now that I'm here, I'm thinking, I feel young still.
Well, you are magnificently beautiful. Everybody, if you could actually see this woman, she does not look as if she's even had 3 kids. She is beautifully dressed up and very American, with her stars and spangles and just exquisite, and this wonderful clear face as well. I have no idea how you don't look stressed.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I have learned to collaborate with other people. That is something that really was a hard lesson for me, because, to ask for help, that's just something that, you think about it, if you're raised to get honor roll and be in gifted classes, it's very competitive. It's an individual situation. Who's getting the best grade? Not a lot of teamwork when it comes to that, and so having to really kind of make sense out of working as a team, then knowing when to be an individual, that alone can be a struggle. So I have learned really to look at what are some of my goals and figure out how I can change them to be in group goals and get with people who are already doing those things or aspiring to do those things. It's a lot easier. I think it's more like working with the current instead of against it, when it comes to just the water and, being in the ocean. You're not going to go out there and try to surf, different things. There's a technique to it, is what I'm getting at. So once I learned, why am I going to make it harder for myself? That just doesn't make sense. So it's all about collaboration.
What happened when you were hospitalized 3 times? How did your children react? And what was the coping mechanism of you being able to deal with that period in your life, which must have been really worrying, because you're stuck in hospital. You're a mom. You're America's super mom, and you're worrying about your children as well. How did you get out of that? It's almost like a circle that you kept on running around and biting your own tail or chasing your own tail.
Oh, true. Yeah. The big summary for that is being in a victim mindset, feeling like life is happening to me instead of even being involved in the process. And that is something really, in transparency, we're still working through. I believe there's a lot of deeper layer pain that's associated with a lot of my children. And, it's constant healing, which is one of the pillars of my coaching. I have a strategy that I call Fresh Start, and it's an acronym for 5 different pillars, and healing is one. So, one, I'm very fortunate that I'm not on medication. I was in medication with each of those hospitalizations, but I was able to come home and to bounce back, so to speak. I think it was that period of reflecting after that last hospitalization. So just as you said, it was a pattern. There were things that were happening that I just was not attuned to. And it wasn't until after that last hospitalization that I said, you know what, there is a pattern. I can't blame my kids. I can't blame my husband. I'm the common denominator. So what am I going to do about it? And so that's where I was able to really do a lot of deeper reflection in my own life and figure out, how I was going to make sense out of it all. And the interesting thing is that during this time, I didn't have a title of America's Supermom. This is something that I embraced after my last hospitalization, because I just believe that it was a really hard transition for me to make sense out of, feeling like I was a high achiever, focused on being the best version of myself. And I had this period of 13 years that just wasn't in alignment with who I remember being. And I just thought, how is this going to make sense? I can't totally forget about 13 years. If I did, that's a number of my children that might not be around, right? So you have to figure out, how are you going to make a message out of your mess, that a lot of people say. And I had to do a reframe. I had to think about, there's periods during that 13 years that formed the person that I am. And I use this analogy a lot about, if you suffer from a broken arm, you're not going to just say, this arm is broken and it just isn't how I remember it being. So I'm just going to cut it off and continue my life without my arm, right?
That's not a good idea.
Really not at all. So that's how we have to be about our past. Our past is really a very important, like a part of our body. And because it has formed who we are. So we have to find a way to take the good and the bad and recognize that the reframe can be in a way that serves us. And it also could be in a way that we can learn from our mistakes and be able to be a mouthpiece for other people to help them from making the same mistake.
Getting to where you are right now and what you shared about reframing, who were your mentors in getting you to understand better the way you are and think, and that it, as you say, it's not happening to you, it's happening through you?
The first thing I had to do was really do a lot of inner reflection. When I came home, I stopped watching the news. I took a little hiatus from social media. And I really felt like a lot of my stress and anxiety was trying to accomplish these standards that I really didn't know if they were truly mine, if I was doing them because I thought I had to do them, because they were the American thing to do or whatever. I just went into this period of really going within and deciding, what is my idea of success? What kind of mother do I want to be? What kind of legacy do I want to leave for my children? And what kind of relationship do I want to have with them? And so it was in this journey that I really came up with my own set of standards or ideals. And I gravitated towards people who helped me to continue to be better versions of myself. So I did have a coach at one point. She was a business coach that really helped me separate my life and my business, because coaching was a lifeline for me after my last hospitalization in terms of being able to pour into other people and support them and get the support I needed, which has really helped me in my personal life. I was actually 46 after my last hospitalization. So that was just 4 years ago. But I always talk to my children and say, look, I had this situation going on. Well, yeah, it was a 13-year depression, but a lot of my habits were 46 years of habits. So they're not going to change overnight. So for me to think that my kids are going to miraculously understand and see me as this new person after 1 year, 2 year, whatever amount of years is really not fair, because it took me 46 years to kind of wake up and have my moment. So I'm a lot more patient and empathetic with their transition and the healing journey that we're all on. And it helps me to have compassion and empathy for them. But a lot of that is because I know that there's an outlet that I can be around people that can continue to help me to evolve and push myself higher, and then be patient, on my home front about the things that I feel I would like my kids to learn. I would like them to change. But I found that it makes things a lot easier if you work with people instead of trying to dictate and tell them what to do.
That's so true. And also, you were saying earlier, when you're with like-minded people and people who have this empowerment mindset, they uplift you. And there's a great truth in birds of a feather flock together. So I hear you on that. It's so true. There's another thing I'd like to say is it's not just about America. I've coached and interviewed and gone out and spoken to people all over the world. And women all over the world are made to believe from when they're a little girl, they have to have these certain standards. There's a certain, it's a generational thing. I think we're like you being more understanding with your children now, as opposed to you and I, who were brought up at a certain period where we were expected, especially as women, to behave in a certain way, to look a certain way when hubby gets home in the evening. The children all have to be in bed and tucked up. Homework has to be done. Your own business has to be sorted out. It is a total generational thing. And we are seriously made and groomed to think that that is how it's right, including what you were saying. TV, advertising, magazines. No wonder you switched everything off. I did 5 years ago.
And don't you feel, I feel like I live in a bubble now. It's so funny. We had a hurricane here a couple weeks ago, and someone sent me a message through Messenger, and they're like, because here they name, they name them the different names. So someone reached out and said, so how are things going with Sally? And I thought, Sally, because I meet so many people. I have podcast interviews. So I'm thinking, I'm looking in my diary. Okay, did I forget to do something? So I wrote them back and I said, well, who's Sally? They said the hurricane. I thought, I just laughed. I said, now, I don't watch the news. I live in a bubble. Okay.
I love it.
So I thought that was really funny. But yeah, you have to limit what comes in, as best as you can, because, emotions, we're emotional creatures.
Yes.
And, I have learned that I can choose what type of emotion and energy that I want to have in the day or whatever. And, why expel that on stuff that is out of my control, and it's really perpetuating something I really don't want to spend my time doing,
I hear you.
Meditating on. Yeah.
That is very wise advice to people who are listening. I always think of, I won't say which channels on TV, but what happened to me is these news broadcasts. And I sat down one day and I realized that every 10 minutes, the same bad news is being sent out to you. And then the same advertisements telling you to go and do something about your face and get a nip and tuck there and here, and you're not beautiful unless you've done such and such, or you go get your lips made fatter or thinner, or get a bigger fat bottom, or whatever.
Yes.
We don't need that.
It's so true. Yeah. And I mean, and we wonder why we have this period of feeling like, we're not enough. We're not small enough. We're not smart enough. We're not organized enough. Everything is staged. And a lot of this I was able to find out in my own life because we were pursued by a production company to have a reality show here for the size of our family. And that whole situation, it really taught me a lot about, where people stand for the camera, the lighting and all this. And it's like so much of the authenticity, even if it is a real situation, is staged. And from that, it's just, we are trying to live up to something that is an illusion, right? TV shows, they have a certain motivation that they're trying to get at. And this is the cycle that we get on that causes many of us to fall short in feeling like we're not enough. We're not the best version of ourselves because look at them on TV. They're doing it. So what's wrong with me?
I hear you. This is so true. And listeners, do listen to what LaChelle has to say here, because we do not need to be indoctrinated. What we must do is be who we are, our beautiful selves. Each one of us is an individual, and each one of us is here on this earth for something incredible. And if you use this intuition that LaChelle is talking about, this mindset, you then have the ability to do amazing things, incredible creativity, just like you've done, LaChelle, since you've repaired and reset and got better. You are now a massively popular coach. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I love the whole aspect of allowing women the space to do their own inner reflection. We have the busyness of, mommy with our kids tugging at our shirts or whatever, and society where it's like, what is a mom supposed to be doing and all these different things. So I just help women to have a space to really be able to be themselves, to admit the things that they feel that they're not happy with. It's so hard to be perfect and raise children because the children think something's wrong with them. It's a cycle we're perpetuating. So if you're smiling and always happy and you're not showing children how to deal with adversity, you're not showing them a reality of certain things that are going on, the struggle between, if you're building your business, do you want to invest more in marketing, or are you going to get supplies to do your job better, or a subscription? Those type of issues are real life issues that you have to decide in order to go on that journey of being better with your business, So we hide a lot of these things to help children have a sense of security, but security for them is being able to think with all the resources and tools in front of them, not the mindset of thinking they have to do everything perfect, because if you have that mindset, you would be crushed with this global pandemic because there are so many elements that are out of your control, major things that are out of your control. So to think that you could fit everything in a box, that everything is going to be perfect, I think that's the hardest thing. So in my coaching, I'm able to really dive deeper in a lot of these areas through master classes or one-on-one group coaching to really be able to shed the light and help women to just have that time to even ask yourself questions. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it really netting the results that I thought that it would? So many times we have the ideal scenario of getting married, having a house with the picket fence, 2 kids, a cat and a dog. And if that was really what drove you, where are you at now? Is that still the reality you want? Do you feel like you need to change it? We just go right on seeing that things aren't right and just think, well, if I keep doing it long enough, it's going to change, which is insane.
It is insane. And that is the truth, where you think, well, if you just do one more little day of this, everything's going to work out. And of course it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And then you end up in hospital. LaChelle,
right.
Listening to what you were saying earlier on about how kids understand and work with a parent who understands them, would you say that traditional education is good for children or not? Learning the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and you've got to do it this way, and you must be like part of a group. What are your thoughts on that?
It really is not. It does not help a person build confidence, appreciate their own unique individuality. We go through a period of being conditioned to believe certain things. And then we get to a point where we see that it's not serving us. So then we have to try to unlearn this pattern that we have been forced to doing. And even just the whole concept of traditional school doesn't even take into account the different learning styles. It would be different if they even said, okay, we're going to do our ABCs, but today we're going to use manipulatives and we're going to figure out how we can make these letters, with sand or something like that. These are some of the different things that we explore even after a child has been conditioned a certain time frame. So they're not able to fully embrace it. And this really sets them on a pattern of being out of alignment with who they really are. So the struggle really is, you're having these mindsets of thinking, because you're a visual learner and your teacher might teach a different way, then you're feeling like you don't fit in, you don't belong, something's wrong with you. We don't have enough of a personal confidence that's built through the traditional school system to even begin to explore different answers to that. We always go inward and think something's wrong with us. So I think in that sense, I think it's not a good thing because it's not helping us to be better versions of ourselves.
I like that answer. I totally agree with you there as well. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that COVID-19 is changing our thinking patterns on how to be parents and how education should be presented to a child?
I believe there are people and parents who are changing. There's so many dynamics to changing the education that has a domino effect. So, you have to have that realization as a parent that, it may not have been the best way for my kids to learn. However, it has happened. And, what does that mean for our family? How are we going to do things different? And I don't think you really need to do like a major overhaul, but just being able to explore, okay, how can we supplement this education? How can we add to it instead of just thinking you have to start all over from scratch? Because there's some things with structure that are good that you can learn and kind of adapt. But I believe that for parents to have a mindset to want to change and do something different, there's that element of having that awareness and, not being in denial and recognizing, yeah, you're part of the system. I was in that system as well. I was raised to get a good education, you get a career, stay-at-home mom was nowhere in that picture. I don't know how. I thought the kids were going to be born and just raise themselves while I'm having this career. I mean, some of these things you just don't think about, right?
You don't. I love it.
Yeah. So now it's like, for some people to have that realization that, wow, if we do change school, well, then what's that going to mean for my career and all this? And so they're not willing to do the work. It's going to be work. It's a process. You can't just blink your eyes and say, okay, we're going to make a change and think that it's not going to affect you. So I would say there are a lot of parents who are being proactive about that, but it would be great if everybody had that mindset. But I think there's that element of their identity and a lot of their routines are tied into things being done the way they are. And it's easy. It's like, this is a system. It's, there's a lot of people that it's worked for. And, why are we going to try to rock the boat, so to speak?
When I listen to what you're saying, I totally agree with you on many, many levels. When COVID-19 first broke out and everything was in lockdown here in Australia, and the children had to stay at home, so did the parents, and they had to teach their children. That was a very interesting thing for me to observe, having been in education for 40 plus years myself. And I was amused because many of these parents suddenly realized how much a teacher, educator does, and how much they started, the parents were relying on the system to do the parenting. Now, that was an interesting thing that I noticed. What are your thoughts on that?
So true. And I think it was a culture shock for a lot of parents. Now, I've had the luxury of being in a situation where I did homeschool our kids, different stages of their upbringing. So I'm familiar with that element of teaching the children. And but there is that whole mindset that it's a belief system. It's like, I go to work, my child goes to school, and it's this mindset that you can compartmentalize. So you could be at work and do your career while your kids are at school under somebody else's responsibility. And then we come home and we try to work it out. But one of the things that I found after my own struggle with depression is that, life is about embracing the totality of who you are and your experiences, hence the name America's Supermom. So, as I got to coaching, being more verbal and vocal with different platforms, I was able to really embrace truly what it was to be a mom with a large number of kids and doing the other things that I did. So much that is part of my brand. So if someone is to do an interview and one of my kids comes in, hey, mom, or whatever, I don't have to have this even more facade of trying to be perfect. It's like, you know what? I'm America's Supermom. My kids are coming in right now and we can keep it moving. It's not like I have to be like, okay, this interview, we got to get it done in this quiet time, even though, you do have to make allowances. But the point is, I have chosen to embrace that so that, hey, if I'm not feeling the best or whatever, that's just a part of my life totality, and I'm able to use that as an opportunity to even again coach and illustrate how you have to rise above certain situations and be focused on your goals, and not let those little things distract you and stop you.
What I love about podcasting, and we all at home, is when a child or a dog or whatever it is does come in and become part of a podcast that I'm one of my special guests. I had somebody come in recently and his little girl climbed up onto his lap and she was part of, he said it was okay. She was part of my podcast and it was fantastic and it was so natural. And I believe that, like you say, when you go with the flow and you embrace whatever's happening around you and are natural, then the world starts to see you as you are, America's Supermom. Because
so true.
You are who you are, and you're not going to change for anybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think once I really got to that mindset, that was a game changer because I didn't really have to seek the validation from other people. It also helped me to be able to pour in other people because I am now in a place to where I really recognize my need to fill my own cup up first. And then I have something to share, you know. So for years, I was just assuming because of my position and the things I had to be responsible for that I had something to give and that it was all good and happy. But it wasn't until I went back and reflected. It's like, you know, man, you know, I'm assuming that I have this pitcher every day full of water that I'm pouring out in the lives of others. But this pitcher is sitting here empty. I hadn't filled it up, you know, within 13 years. So what am I giving out to people that I really am thinking, you know? So having that really was a wake up call. But now it's like, I know exactly what I'm giving to people and how I am choosing to show up. You know, what things I fill myself up with in order to be able to share that lesson, that story with other people.
And it's a magnificent story. How do you assist women in facing their fears?
I think the main thing is to help them acknowledge it. You know, fear is something that's a constant and it's always going to be there. That's the first pillar of my fresh start is using fear as fuel. So fear is something that gets your attention. You know, you have to make a decision. You can't sit there and just let life happen around you. Something is going to cause you to move. And a lot of times it's fear. So fear doesn't have to be a stop sign, but it could be a place where you can begin to get the right tools in line. You know, if you want to be a speaker, well, we're not saying for you not to speak, but how are you going to start that journey? You know, and a lot of times when it comes to the fears that we have, it's because we are trying to take on more than we can handle and not really finding a way that we can break that goal down to where it is manageable. You know, so if I say, well, Susan, I really want to learn how to play the piano and I don't know anything about the piano. You know, I'm not going to be playing Bach or Tchaikovsky or some of these great, you know, musicians the first day I play. One, I don't even know what the keys are. I don't know where I put my hands on the piano. I don't know how to read music. So once we begin to really analyze what it is we desire, but look at each part of that, then we realize, man, okay, I don't know this, I don't know that. That doesn't mean I can't learn it, but I need to create some plan on how I am going to learn it. This is where you can seek out people, you know, that can help you. You know, I don't know how to read music, Susan. Do you know anybody who can teach me? Do you know anybody who plays the piano already? All these different questions, they're very goal oriented. You know, it's not me saying, Susan, I don't know anything about my life. It's like, Susan, I know I want to play the piano. Do you know anybody who plays and who can help me? So you're very task oriented and driven on the question you're asked, which makes a difference when it comes through trying to navigate through life. When you really have a sense of who you are and what it is you're aspiring to do, you're going to ask different questions. They're going to put you on a path of where you want to go.
So you're an incredible conduit of helping a person be able to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are. Do you ever say to them, look, tell me what it is that you love or can do already and forget about playing the piano?
To ask them to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's, listening is so important, and I tell my people that I coach, if they're in business, they want to create deeper relationships, you have to carry a notebook always. And when you have a conversation with people, if it's not an interview, then you should have something in that notebook when you get done with that call, right? If you don't, you've been talking too much and you haven't learned anything. So I think it's the mindset of always being curious is so important, because curiosity can lead you to so many different new experiences, and it helps you create, be innovative, all from asking the right questions. So we're so busy telling people things, feeling like we have the answers, not giving people the opportunity to input anything. And that really, for me, did not serve me, because if I felt like I was right all the time, there's no room for growth, and that really is a lens that covers a multitude of things, because you can't appreciate other people, because it's like if they do something different than you, then they're wrong, you're right. It's always this thing of being right all the time. But once you're able to give that up and realize, what, this was what I was used to, but even something that you're used to, is it serving you? If I'm eating ice cream every morning and I'm weighing 50 pounds overweight, is that, I'm used to eating ice cream, but is that serving me? So things that we do, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. We need to really figure out, okay, so do I want to lose weight? If I do, that's one of the things I'm going to have to say, I'm used to doing it, but what can I replace that with that's going to better serve me?
A bit of jogging, perhaps? Running around the block?
If you have the energy to do it, right?
I love that. Tell me about your husband being a minister.
Yes. This is a definitely one of the things that you have to recognize, that one is your husband's calling and knowing your role in that. So I feel as a first lady, it's our role to support our husband. I don't have to go and recreate and do everything. And really, I had to come to terms with what that meant for me, here in America, and then even the culture that I'm a part of, African American. There's this tradition where first ladies, they sing, or, they wear hats, and just finding the space to be my individual person and be who I am. That was a tackle experience in itself, because, I felt like, man, am I supposed to do these things? Just adopting them because that's all I knew. And for me to have a different mindset about that, that was the struggle, But once I realized, God made me the way that I am, I'm happy with that. And the more I can be authentic, I think that's more important. I find that I'm able to help a lot more people, and I feel that they think I'm a lot more approachable because I'm comfortable being me, rather than trying to be this cookie cutter of this example and not being happy. People coming to me and it's like, very superficial, feeling like they have to. It's the whole mindset of, you ask someone to come and clean your house, but you spend half the day cleaning it up before they get there. Because you're worried about them cleaning it, right? I mean, that's just crazy. But yeah, we run into that a lot. But I think, really recognizing that, he has a purpose, I have a purpose, and being okay with that, and whatever that looks like. You know, I trust God ultimately. So it's his decision how things map out. And anytime I get a little anxiety, I just pray about it. And I'm like, you know what? God's will is going to be done. So there may be times when we disagree about things, but I just say, you know what? God, we'll see what God says about it. So that's just kind of how I approach it.
You remind me of the beautiful, intelligent, and innovative Michelle Obama. She did that with her husband, and you do it with yours. So congratulations, lady.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's an honor because, hey, what she had to deal with being the first lady, I mean, my hat goes off to her because I don't know.
Absolutely. And you know what? She's one of my I respect her hugely. And she's, I would say, my most favorite first lady in the States. Yeah. She's really something. Tell me, what is your charity? What's it all about?
Yeah, I actually am just very passionate about any charity involving mental wellness. I work really closely with Haven House. That's a domestic violence shelter here where I live, as well as Gigi's House. That's another shelter for children, young adults who have been sex trafficked. So they've been rescued and, you know, they're back on the road to recovery. So also very passionate about breast cancer, children's hospital. I work closely with them about, you know, realizing that there are so many things that we take for granted, you know, being in a happy home and, you know, our kids being safe and all these different places where I like to spend my time. It's just a reminder that, you know, the work that needs to be done, because we get into these places and these situations because we have this mindset that we're not enough. And when you have that mindset, it really opens up the opportunity for you to be a victim of domestic violence or sex trafficked, or, you know, even things from children with their health. You know, there's so many things that, you know, they have food allergies or whatever the case is that can take a turn towards worse, and they're in the hospital, you know, because we can be distracted with life and trying to do what everybody else is doing. So those are some of the charities that I'm really passionate about working alongside.
Here in Australia, during COVID-19, sadly, domestic violence has increased. Has it increased in the States?
Yes. Yeah, that and abuse, and there's just a number of things. And I mean, you could see it happening. I believe that, you know, even though we're approaching the numbers going down in certain areas, I believe that, you know, it's going to get a lot worse because people are losing their jobs, and the domino effect really has not hit a lot of people yet. You know, we've had stimulus, supplements for, you know, people in our country, and, you know, it's a Band-Aid for an open wound, really. So I think that there is still more negative things that are going to be coming down the pike, and it's really a sad place, you know, to be.
LaChelle, this is worldwide. I speak to women who are involved in charities like you are all over the world, and it is worldwide. And I'm praying that we all change our mindsets and have the ability to rethink how to deal with things, just like you did when you were stressed and ended up in hospital. Because if you can't do that, and as I say, awakening your mind magic, it's all about understanding how you can improve yourself through a different way of thinking. So, yeah, I think when perhaps I have you back with please
Oh,
on the show
absolutely.
again. We'll be able to talk about that perhaps next year and find
Yes,
out exactly what's going on in 12 months' time.
absolutely.
You talked about being challenged with people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just been speaking about COVID-19 and how things have increased with abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Would you think, or what is your advice to women on how to change that way of behaving?
Well, the first thing to realize is when you're people pleasing, you are really giving your power away, because you are subjecting yourself to whatever standard that they have set up for you. And so you're pleasing them on their own terms. So the first thing we have to realize is that, do you even agree with their terms? A lot of times we just lay down and just let people just decide anything for us. And then we don't even realize, do I like this person? Do they have the same values I have? We don't really have that space for ourselves. So even just, it's all about back to questions. What do these people aspire to do? What are their values? We don't take time to ask them. We just lay down when someone comes forward and gives us a standard, don't question it, and then we start trying to aspire to achieve it. So this happens a lot in our careers, families, parenting. I mean, the list can go on and on. So I think we really have to do that inner work to say, what are our values and how important are our values? If they're very important, you're not going to just lay them down for everybody who comes along. But we have been in a situation where that has been how we've conducted our life a lot of times. So we need to kind of reevaluate that and think about, if I'm not happy 7 days out of 10, why is that? Is that because I've allowed that control to be given to other people, or what am I doing? So I think it's just that evaluation to kind of see, because you can't really tell somebody that they're people pleasing. They have to come to that realization themselves. You can't tell them anything really, because we go through denial. So if people give us feedback, the first thing we want to do is get defensive and say, this is not true. And so then we try to make it not true. And so it's just a crazy cycle. So I think people have to kind of come to that realization and decide, is this really serving you or not? Are you feeling empowered? Are you feeling powerless? I challenge them to explore, why is that? Why are you feeling like you don't have any power? And begin to kind of follow that trail, because it's something that no one can speak for you about. You could have everything that everybody on the outside is looking and saying, oh, you've got this beautiful family. You're married. You got this and that, this house. And, we really need to explore, how are we feeling about those things? Because that's what's keeping us up at night if we're not feeling in alignment with that.
Absolutely. You offer an assessment on your website to women to find out which areas of stress they're in. What is that all about?
I think, it's the whole thing about being able to self-identify. When you're able to self-identify, then you're able to take the steps and measures to make a change. And sometimes, like I said, it's just asking the right question. I could say, are you stressed? Oh, yeah, it's common to talk about stress, but are we doing anything about it? And what kind of stress do we have? Because stress going on, it can affect your health, relationships, your ability to sleep, all these different things. So we need to identify, well, if you are stressed, what are you doing about it? And how can you find ways to, even if it's not necessarily getting a coach, but having that time to really reflect for yourself. So one of the things that I've created over the pandemic is a check-in system for women. It's a Smile for Wellness movement. And SMILE is an acronym with 5 pillars of things that we need to be identifying every day to make sure that our mental wellness is good. And so in my case, I'm passionate about it because I didn't know the signs. So I want to help. Areas are your mood, your inner voice, laughter, and energy. So if you really examine each of those areas, they really can be catalysts going in a negative or positive way. So, laughter for me was a big one. There were times that I just don't even recall laughing, and I have a house full of children, right? So for over 13 years, I probably can count on my hands the number of times that I really laughed in the home. Of course, I could do it outside the home if necessary, but so just being able to, something as simple as that, laughing at yourself, enjoying your children, having that type of situation. So those are key things that if we check in daily can help us make sure that we're maintaining our mental wellness.
That's a fantastic system, and I love the sound of that. You offer monthly challenges to your followers. What are they all about?
Yeah, I have themes. I've even broken them down to themes of the week to really help people embrace self-reflection. A lot of people don't have time to do it during this pandemic. We have been forced to do it. And even still, a lot of people are not embracing it. So I like to do things I'm just finding that as I break it down even further, your theme for the week, what are you doing to show courage? That was my theme for last week. This week is healing. What are some things that you're doing for your own healing? How are you mapping that out? What are some things that you're implementing? How are you talking to people? What are some things you do need to do? What conversations do you need to have? So I think just having that time of reflection, and I try to use my themes to where I highlight things that I've done to encourage people that, hey, here she is with all these kids. If she can do it, what's my excuse? We have to get out of that whole thing of having excuses, because excuses are nothing but quitting. That's what I've said a couple of weeks ago. If you have an excuse and you're quitting, it's the same thing.
You're right there. You also offer online events. Share with me more about them.
Yes, I've been a part of a lot of summits, Facebook groups. I've done master classes for them. We've had a lot of women who have struggled with working from home and the homeschooling aspect. So just having opportunities to speak to them in a capacity to help them overcome their challenges. So not let those challenges stop them, paralyze them, but ways that they can work through that. So I've been asked through several different Facebook groups to have master classes with their groups to help them to find strategies and create ways for themselves to overcome that.
You do so much for so many people. Honestly, I'm most impressed. You're also a writer. Let us know more about that. And do you have a book?
Yes, I have one that's done right now. Actually, I was a contributor to that. It is Optimize Your Creative Mindset. I was in one last year as a contributor, and right now I'm co-authoring a book with a young lady. We're both military spouses. And so my husband is a retired major. Her husband is still in the military. But we are really telling the story from our lens of what it's like to deal with the responsibilities during this time with COVID-19. She has a blended family. And so the name of the book that we have right now, our working title, is The Art of Blending. So blending, all the things that we have going on and still being able to give to others during this global pandemic. She created several summits for women in health and family for people during the time of COVID-19. And I was very impressed. She asked me to be a speaker. From that, we end up writing a book. I'm also in another collaboration with International Women. So it's 20 of us as authors from all over the world. We've written a book, and it will be released in November. And then I have a comic book that's coming out.
A comic book. I love that. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
America's Supermom has to have a comic book.
Yes. So I'm excited about it because I was asked to just come alongside and contribute, and I thought it was wonderful. I've always wanted a coloring book. I've done a lot of charity work with the hospitals, and so I always wanted a coloring book for the kids so that we could give out to them regularly. So a comic book was right up my alley. So I thought, well, it's not a coloring book, but a comic book is the same thing as feeding that audience from a young age. And they have trading cards and all these other things that they're planning on with this. So I'm excited about that.
That's wonderful. What's its title?
Mm-hmm. It has different titles because we have influencers that are part of the project. I want to say it might be 12 of us. And so each of us has our own specialty. So my character is America's Supermom. My microphone is my tool. I help people to share their voice. And I have a sidekick, Huggable Hugo. And he helps people feel comfortable to get a hug and be able to be in a safe space to use their voice. So we have a lot of influencers that have different taglines and things like that. So, yeah, it's exciting.
It's delightful. I'm thrilled. Mm-hmm. And where will the listeners be able to find your books? On Amazon?
They can follow me. They should all be on Amazon. So, yeah. Just
and they'll be able to follow you in the links that I'll be uploading along with the podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go, because I know you're a very busy woman, and I've been fascinated at what you have to tell me and my listeners, our listeners, yours as well. And so I'm going to end this now by asking you, what is your advice to your 6-year-old self from your nearly 50-year-old self?
Yes, I would say learn daily. I remember as a kid, I loved to read. I could not put a book down. That was something that just intrigued me. I loved the vocabulary, the richness, the imagery. So embracing who you are, being comfortable, being different, if that is how you feel in certain spaces. And follow the things that just keep you excited and overzealous about life. Because if you keep that same mindset, it doesn't matter about the age. It doesn't matter about a lot of things. You'll be able to adapt, pivot, learn, reach out, collaborate by having that type of mentality. So from 6 years old, recognizing that you don't want to unlearn being the best version of yourself, because you'll spend the whole time of your life trying to get back to that space.
That's great advice. You also have a podcast. What's its name?
Yes, I do. It is Unlock Your Superpower with America's Supermom.
Well, I am going to be rattling on your door there saying, how about interviewing Susan Kathleen? She'd like
Absolutely.
to. Absolutely.
I would love to have you on.
Oh, I could think of nothing more exciting than to be interviewed by America's Supermom. Supermom. And do you, in your comic, do you have a Supermom super suit like Wonder Woman?
Yes, they have. I haven't created one yet, so I am working on that right now. So if you have anybody who is a designer, we'll put that out there. Because that's one of the things is recognizing what kind of suit am I going to have? Because we're going to start doing promo interviews. And so I want to be able to have a stark contrast difference with that uniform, so to speak. So, yeah, I'm working on that now. So my kids, I show them different things. They're like, that's good. I don't know. So we're creating it as we speak.
The whole bang shoot of that great big beautiful family of yours. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. They keep life interesting. Okay.
They sure must.
I've always got either a concert from somebody singing or a stage play, right, from them acting. It's always something, right?
Well, you better get that lycra suit on, girl.
That's a great excuse to lose a few pounds, right?
Oh, no, it's going to be one of those special suits that can pull everything in, I'm sure. It'll be perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, LaChelle, you've been so much fun to have on Awaken Your Mind Magic. How can the listeners get in touch with you?
Yes, the best way is I'm on every social platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, and I have a YouTube channel. So you can look up under America's Supermom. That's the easiest way. Any of those areas, I would be happy to receive any of your listeners, especially they just let me know how they heard me, and happy to serve any way that I can.
Oh, thank you, darling. And I will make sure that all of your links are uploaded, because I know that there's going to be a lot of people who want to chat to you directly. And your journey, thank you so much for sharing it with us. You've traveled so far, and this dream life that you speak of, you move with it, and you are your brand. You live it with such passion. Thank you so much for being on Awaken Your Mind Magic with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just love Australia. Hopefully I'll be able to get there one day. We were fortunate to meet Peter Walsh. You know Peter Walsh?
I don't know Peter Walsh, but I'm sure that I will get to know him now you've mentioned him.
Yes, he is a world-renowned organizer. So we were able to be on the Rachel Ray show. And so he's just great at his job. So he's like, whenever you come, be sure to visit. I think he's in Melbourne, though.
Yeah, Australia's big, like the United States. However, now I got his name. I'll be speaking to him.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, LaChelle. Bless you. And we'll be speaking again very soon.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely going to have you on my show. So thank you again for the opportunity. And I really pray that this was a blessing for many of your listeners to hear.
I'm sure it is. The blessing for me to hear. So take care, my darling. And we'll be speaking again soon.
Okay. All right. You have a great day.
You too. That's Awaken Your Mind Magic for another week. If anything you've heard today has really impacted you and you want to know more, or you would just like to connect with me, then visit my website, awakenyourmindmagic.com, and reach out for a free one-on-one discovery session with me. Silver on the on the inside, silver on the outside, gold on the inside, silver on the outside. Tune in next week, where I'll be discussing more tools to unlock your dreams and live a limitless life that you would truly love to live. I'm Susan Kathleen, and this has been Awaken Your Mind Magic.